Here's an interesting story that comes to us from Toledo, Ohio from 1930. 6-year-old little boy too old to go to school. Principals and doctors puzzling their heads over Clarence, who smoked cigars and could carry his teacher around in his arms. Only 6 years and a few months ago, Miss Clarence Kehr of number 456 Tecumseh Street, Toledo, Ohio, presented her husband with a bouncing baby boy. To the neighbors and friends of the family, the event meant exactly this. The Kehrs have another baby, a boy. To be sure, there were 2 other Kehr children, a girl and a boy. But to the happy father, the birth of the little fellow was an event indeed. Had not he and his wife decided that if it were a boy, the latest arrival would be christened after his father? They had, and they forthwith called him Clarence Jr. Yes, sir, Clarence Jr., and he's a chip off the old block. I'm telling you, Clarence Sr. told his friends whenever there was any conceivable chance to bring up the subject during the first year or so. The Kehrs had mighty little trouble with their younger son. He didn't walk abnormally early. He seldom cried, thereby sparing his proud dad the trouble of nocturnal strolls about the hallway of their home. He seemed to be in every respect a perfectly normal infant, healthy and cheerful, and caused his parents no worry at all. But now the administration of the Toledo Public Schools, after subjecting Clarence to examinations by both a physician and psychiatrist, has declined to enter the boy as a pupil in any first grade. Charles S. Meeks, superintendent of the public schools, has said that neither the welfare of the boy himself nor the best interests of his classmates could be served by permitting him to enter the public schools. Officials of the Roman Catholic parochial schools have taken a similar stand. Amazing. Well, both the Clarence's parents concur in the school's decisions, for they, better than any others, understand the reasons for their son's exclusion. The first examination Clarence Kehr Sr. had of anything unusual in the makeup of his heir and namesake came to him when the little fellow reached his 2nd birthday. The father had been working in the backyard of the Kehr home and felt like smoking. Accordingly, he threw down his tools and walked into the house. From the living room, his nostrils picked up the familiar odor of his best perfectos. Thinking, perhaps, that some company had called, Mr. Kehr straightened his necktie, smoothed his hair, and strode in. "Well, the ejaculation may well be pre-dawn, for upon the stiffened legs crossed sat 2-year-old Clarence, nonchalantly flicking the ashes from a half-smoked cigar. Then, as the father stood in astonishment, the infant took another puff, blew the smoke through his nostrils, and said in a baritone voice, 'Hello, Dad, have a cigar.' Just what took place then has not been announced, but there is a strong suspicion that Dad, exercising his parental rights, administered one of those spankings that hurt me more than they do you." That night, mother and father discussed the event and decided to call in the family physician, Dr. J. Sumner Tedder. Since Clarence was laughing and playing when Dr. Tedder arrived, there was nothing to be done but observe, and the physician did that. He also recalled that soon after Clarence had started to walk, his voice had started to change from a childish treble to a deepening baritone. It had progressed in a few weeks. Nevertheless, there was no sign of sickness of any kind, and what was a doctor to do? From that date, the proud but somewhat puzzled father found his cigar bill mounting, and when the baby called, neither the mother nor the other children, who were quite jubilant over the prowess of little Clarence, could be sure at once whether it was the voice of father or the voice of the son which rang through the rafters. Then came Clarence's 3rd birthday, without any new or startling events, but a few days later something occurred which caused even the newspapers to take notice. An automobile was parked in the backyard. It had been driven in the night before, and one of the tires was flat. On 1 or 2 previous occasions, little Clarence had given his undivided attention, while others had changed tires on the same car on the same spot. So, having observed the deflated condition of the right rear rubber, the infant muttered to himself, "Flat, huh? I'll fix it." He lifted up the cushion of the back seat, pulled out the jack rim wrench and mending kit and pump, and went to work. In about 10 minutes he had the punctured tube free. In another 15 minutes he had it patched. In another 20 he had inserted it in the shoe and fastened the whole tire on the rim. Then just as he was about to put the tools back under the seat, his mother came out and saw him. "What have you been doing, son?" he asked. "Changing a tire, Mum," little Clarence answered. Then he tossed the jack, wrench, pump, and mending kit into the car, brushed off his hands, and smiled rather proudly. "Now I've got to have a smoke," he announced, and suited his words to action by appropriating another of his father's best cigars, seating himself in the den and puffing contentedly. For nearly 3 years now, Clarence has been the subject of study by physicians, psychiatrists, and other scientists in various parts of the United States. Whenever any of them came to see him at his parents' home, and the youngster meets them at the door, welcomes them in his basso profundo tones, and smokes with them for sociability. When they are about to leave, he fingers his budding mustache and shakes hands with them and wishes them well. He has to shave every day, but doesn't seem to mind. He feels quite proud of his manly requirements. Interested in the boy's case, psychiatrists of the University of Michigan made a special study of him after taking more than a dozen x-rays, photographs of his head, and subjecting him to the closest observations for several days. The scientists reached the conclusion that his condition is due to some dysfunction of the ductless glands. The statement is contained in a report which Dr. Gordon Menes prepared on the case, and which occasioned wide discussion in medical circles. The boy's father has a copy of the report, which says in part, "Clarence Kehr, age 4 years, has been observed in our clinic, and has been found that the child is a rare anomaly, namely one of the precious developments. X-ray studies of the bones reveal his frame to be that of a boy well beyond his chronological age. His physical condition apparently is excellent. He is quite strong, and his mustache are highly developed. According to our psychiatrist, he is above the average in intelligence and has an IQ of 120. This places him in superior group. He believes that the child's condition is due to some dysfunction of the ductless glands. The parents are anxious that the child be given employment, and it is our opinion that this is advisable. School, we feel, could be taken care of by a tutor." More recently, Clarence was the subject of discussion at a meeting of the Toledo Academy of Medicine. Dr. J. Sumner Tedder was his physician since birth, ascribed Clarence's prognosis growth as probably due to the superactivity of the ductless glands governing the rate of growth. The tumor, which may press upon one of the glands, possibly the pea-sized pineal gland, located in the brain, may have stimulated the growth of the gland abnormally, Dr. Kehr said, thus inducing an excessive secretion of substance affecting growth. Dr. Kehr pointed out that the case differs from other cases of abnormal development by tumorous glands in the Clarence's growth has been spread impartially through the muscular, bony, and mental systems. The doctor cited the boy's symmetrical muscular development, that of a maturing youth, while other physicians, in discussing x-ray pictures of his skull, hands, and chest, pronounced the bony structure to be that of a youth of about 16 years of age. Nor has Clarence's mental development suffered because of his unusual. Clarence's intelligence, according to the doctor, is far beyond normal. The pineal gland, the dysfunction of which is responsible, according to the physicians, for the remarkable condition of this little boy, is a small, comical, reddish gray body which lies in a depression between the superior caulicle of the brain. It develops as an outgrowth of the third ventricle. In early life, it has a granular structure which reaches the greatest development at about the 7th year. It contains a substance which, injected intravenously, causes fall of blood pressure. Gray's Anatomy says it seems probable that the gland furnishes an internal secretion in children that inhibits the development of the productive glands, and that the corresponding growth of the entire body, the same book also says, invasion of the gland in children by pathological growth, which practically destroys the granular tissue, results in accelerated development, increased growth of the skeleton, and precocious mentality. As to the boy's future, Dr. Kehr has expressed some doubt. He said that the growth could not continue at its early rate indefinitely, and that Clarence might burn out at what in other individuals would be comparatively early age. Clarence was on the Academy of Medicine stage during the meeting of the doctors To demonstrate his strength, he lifted heavy weights, easily smoked a cigar, while the discussion was going on, amused himself by pushing a grand piano about the stage. Clarence, after having his fame of being the most oldest 6-year-old alive, he went on to live a pretty normal life. He was born September 12, 1924, in Toledo, Ohio, to Cecilia Wagner, age 28, and Clarence Kehr, age 29. And June 12, 1943, at the age of 18, Clarence got married to Ezola Tiny Kehr in Lucas, Ohio on June 12, 1943, when he was 18 years old. And they had a son, born in 1953 in Detroit, Michigan. His name was Paul Kehr, or 1953, died 2018. Clarence's mother passed away in 1974, Toledo, Ohio, at the age of 79. Clarence Kehr died August 1980. In Toledo, Ohio, when he was 55 years old. And Clarence was buried in Carvery Cemetery, Toledo, Lucas County, Ohio. Clarence Kehr Sr. died 1988 in Toledo, Lucas County, Ohio. He was buried in the Carvery Cemetery.